for the hardest-hitting show in talk radio. The true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
And welcome to Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. My name is Darren Gibson, and I'm your co-host.
Yeah, my name is Jack Prince, your fellow co-host.
Jack, we've got, as we always do every week, it seems like we've got a lot of stuff to talk about today.
Wow.
We're going to talk about abortion, Trump, Memorial Day. We're going to run the whole gambit here today. But before we get started, we have some reminders that you can follow us on social media by going to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. You can follow us on Twitter at Southpaws Radio. You can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. We would appreciate anything that you can offer. We're not going to promise you extra content. We're not going to promise you anything. We're just going to promise you the great shows that we provide to you every single week. And you can also listen to us, since we're talking about social media. We always post links to our Facebook page, to our Twitter page, and to our YouTube page. So make sure you check us out there. You can listen to us across Pacifica Radio on stations including KCEI-FM, Taos, New Mexico, KZGM, Kabul, Missouri. You can also listen to us on Global Community Radio Channel 1 every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. We're on right after Democracy Now! And, of course, you can listen to us anytime you want to at Spreaker.com. Do a search for Southpaws. Or you can go to the iTunes store, search for Southpaws under podcasts, and find our logo. It's real easy. We give you a bunch of different ways that you can find us. And speaking of finding something, we found this. I wanted to play bits and pieces of it last week. This is a good segue right here to what we want to talk about, because we want to hit on abortion, what's been happening in Louisiana, and we just celebrated Memorial Day in the United States for our international listeners. And George Carlin hits it out of the park talking about people that identify as pro-life only caring about the unborn, and they don't care about you until you get military age. This runs about 8 minutes and 30 seconds, but I'm probably going to stop it at some points just to kind of do the analysis here. But let's listen to the wise words of George Carlin.
Why is it that most of the people who are against abortion are people you wouldn't want to f*** in the first place, huh? Boy, these conservatives are really something, aren't they? They're all in favor of the unborn. They will do anything for the unborn. But once you're born, you're on your own. Pro-life conservatives are obsessed with the fetus from conception to 9 months. After that, they don't want to know about you. They don't want to hear from you. No nothing. No neonatal care, no daycare, no Head Start, no school lunch, no food stamps, no welfare, no nothing. If you're pre-born, you're fine. If you're preschool, you're f***ed. Conservatives don't give a shit about you until you reach military age. Then they think you are just fine, just what they've been looking for. Conservatives want live babies so they can raise them to be dead soldiers. Pro-life. These people aren't pro-life, they're killing doctors. What kind of pro-life is that? What, they'll do anything they can to save a fetus, but if it grows up to be a doctor, they just might have to kill it? They're not pro-life. You know what they are? They're anti-woman. Simple as it gets. Anti-woman. They don't like it. They don't like women. They believe a woman's primary role is to function as a broodmare for the state. Pro-life. You don't see many of these white anti-abortion women volunteering to have any black fetuses transplanted into their uteruses, do you? No, you don't see them adopting a whole lot of crack babies, do you? No, that might be something Christ would do. And You won't see a lot of these pro-life people dousing themselves in kerosene and lighting themselves on fire. You know, morally committed religious people in South Vietnam knew how to stage a goddamn demonstration, didn't they? They knew how to put on a fucking protest. Light yourself on fire! Come on, you moral crusaders, let's see a little smoke to match that fire in your belly.
I want to pause it right there because it's funny that Carlin mentions that as well, because we're also going to mention the protester earlier this week that lit himself on fire right outside the White House. Oh.
Yeah, you know, it's ironic because we had mentioned the fact that the passivity demonstrated here in the United States, our memories went back to the protests that Carlin just mentioned, where monks, I believe they're Buddhist monks, lit themselves on fire over the increased bombing in Cambodia. What happens, though, Darren? What happened when we had millions of people protesting the Vietnam War? Who was this guy that lit himself on fire out there? Did he have a cause? Did he say what he was against?
I really don't know. I haven't really heard a lot about it since then, other than the TMZ video that has been all over.
Now, that's the far extreme, folks, from some responsible protests, which we're sorely in need of, to lighting yourself on fire. But the point's well taken. And Carlin said they knew how to throw a protest. These people didn't like seeing babies napalmed. It doesn't bother us now that in Yemen we see kids starving and that we're summarily bombing the kids with Saudi Arabian bombs, which we just increased the aid to Saudi Arabia. Doesn't bother us at all. Phosphorus bombs, they've proven now.
Yeah, I've got the story. This is by Kevin Bruninger at CNBC. This is dated May 30th. A man who set himself on fire near the White House has died of his injuries, U.S. Park Police said Thursday. The man is identified as Arnav Gupta of Bethesda, Maryland. He set himself on fire Wednesday afternoon on the Ellipse Park, not far from the Washington Monument, in full view of passers-by. Police said in a statement that he died of his injuries later that evening. Park Police said they have turned over their investigation to the Washington Metropolitan Police Department. Multiple outlets reported that Gupta was the man who had been reported missing Wednesday morning by police in suburban Montgomery County, Maryland. In a Facebook post asking for public help locating him, the police said that the 33-year-old was last seen by his family when he left his home around 9:20 a.m. Wednesday. Police said in the post that they are concerned for Gupta's physical and emotional welfare. The Secret Service said Wednesday that officers responded in seconds after Gupta set himself on fire, then began administering first aid and transported him to a hospital. The White House did not immediately respond to CNBC's request for comment on Gupta's death. The man's motive remains unclear. Another man had set his jacket on fire outside the White House's north fence line in April. That man's injuries were not life-threatening.
Okay, you got to be totally crazy to go light yourself on fire, right? But it appeared he had a message.
Yeah.
You don't go and light yourself on fire and not let somebody know why the blank you're burning yourself up. I wouldn't be surprised if it was how horrendous the president is or something they're just not going to repeat. Unless he's stark raving mad. Then he has no issues other than his madness. But I think he had an issue.
Well, they're actually... The cops told TMZ, who was the first outlet to post the video in full, the cops are telling TMZ that they believe that this guy was on hallucinogenics. I have my doubts about that.
Yeah, I do too. They weren't on hallucinogenics in Vietnam when the monks set themselves on fire.
No.
All we're setting on fire today is our democracy right in front of our eyes.
Yeah, this is just, wow. I just can't get over this. And I saw the actual video. A lot of the news outlets would show a screenshot of the smoke rising up, but TMZ actually showed the video of him walking around fully engulfed in flames. That's some horrific stuff there.
And we'd like people to know our answer to the question, where's the protest against war in this country, isn't answered by setting yourself on fire, folks. Just is not answered by that. That's not what we're advocating.
No.
But we're certainly advocating getting up off our rear end when we see Trump running, this is the quote, around Congress to be allowed. Well, he's not asking for allowance. He's just selling $22 billion more military aid to Saudi Arabia.
That's right. The country that the terrorists came from that committed the September 11th atrocities. 15 of them came from Saudi Arabia. But yet we go into Iraq and bomb them.
Well, I'm an old statistician. My statistician work centered around athletic records and stats and games and so forth. And the tail of the tape never lies. You can have your own opinion, but the tail of the tape doesn't. Mm-hmm. We're spending $170 million a day militarily. This has gone on for 16 years in the war in Afghanistan. I'm not talking about Vietnam. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about even Iraq. We're talking $170 million a day, and yet we're hearing that to maintain Medicare, that's the problem. $170 million. There's an article out just this week. Contractors reaped from the Iraq War $138 billion, primarily Brown and Root, which we've talked about in this show, and, of course, Hal Burton.
Yeah, of course.
Who the vice president had his claws into, or vice versa.
Dick Cheney. Yeah.
So as we're in Memorial Day, shadow here, the week after, when was that, Monday? Seems like 2 weeks ago, but just this week, I think it's important to realize there's things you need to remember besides, unfortunately, the death of thousands of servicemen, one of which was my cousin, one of which my sister, and I know she listens to the show. She lives in Colorado. I would like to tell you, my half-sister, that was a tragic loss, but that there were thousands of kids since 1969 when our cousin was killed in Vietnam that maybe we could have done something about to stop. Because I think it's all but absolutely granted that the Vietnam War was a complete waste. Mm-hmm. The whole domino theory was disproven. The Pentagon Papers showed unequivocally what really was behind the Vietnam War, where 52,000 people were killed, including my cousin. It was needless. It was a sham. It was a scam. We were pushed into it, just like we were pushed into the Iraq War. I remember sitting there watching Colin Powell pull out the graphs, the design charts that were so professionally prepared that indicated there was nuclear weapons. And do we want to wait until the nuclear smoke is settling down over America before we do something about it? Bull crap. Mm-hmm. Total horse crap. That's what we should have been doing with our time instead of saying, well, let's remember one more time the victims. Let's remember the needless deaths. And I say needless deaths in Iraq, now in Afghanistan, and, of course, in Vietnam in my generation. That's what Memorial Day should be saying. Memorial means to remember. Let's remember the adjoining policy that put our young treasure into these needless wars.
Yep, and it's funny that you mentioned the Pentagon Papers because Mike Gravel, who was a U.S. Senator from Alaska at the time, who was the one who attempted to read the Pentagon Papers into the congressional record, and it caused a free speech lawsuit, Gravel versus U.S. From 1972. And Mike Gravel is running for president right now as a Democrat. He all he wants to do is get on the debate stage to say, you need to vote for Bernie Sanders. It's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, and they're going to keep him from getting on that debate stage. Do everything they can. They're claiming the top 5 candidates, Bernie, Warren, Harris, Biden, Buttigieg, and O'Rourke. Those are your leaders. Gravel, they're going to make sure it doesn't get a chance.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say it. Every time I hear on the news, presidential frontrunner Joe Biden, I scream at the TV, no, he isn't!
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, I use expletives. I think that the American public are realizing this is a canard. Mm-hmm. They got it 50 points ahead. I saw one of the most recent blogs. It's ridiculous.
I do believe that's a fake article. I think it's a parody article
all fake.
Like that. Well, no, I think it's a parody like The Onion is what it is.
Yeah, I think so. And yet people can barely decipher between. Well, but I want to get back to. Well,
I was going to say, I still have more of Carlin to play here. I'd actually like to get back to that because we have not